Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Felicia. I'm a knitter living in Washington, D.C., and this is my little corner of the internet where I like to share my knitting journey, the things that I'm knitting on, the things that I'm thinking about knitting on, yarns that I'm picking up, loving, all of those sorts of things. So if that interests you, then please stay tuned. I have a ton to share because it's been quite a while since I've been on. So I have a lot to share and I'm excited to share all of it. So yeah, sit back. I'm looking at a pile of yarn and knits and it's crazy. So this is gonna be a long episode. Hope you don't mind. And yeah, I'm ready to get started. So first I'm gonna talk about what I'm wearing. This is my Cote cardigan by Hiroko Payne. I have talked about this at length, I think in my last episode. I will link to it if you're interested in knowing more about the pattern and my thoughts on it and all of those things. But it's knit in Labi Anime Cori worsted in the color Kitsune, and it's just pretty much all over. It's like 3/4 cable cardigan. Mine is cropped a little bit. It has pockets, and it's like a rainy, dreary, overcast, disgusting day in DC, and so I threw this on. I won't say insomnia because I think that's like a real medical thing, but last night I was just up and I decided to look for some yarn that I had purchased like maybe in 2019 or 2020, and then that turned into like a whole yarn organizing thing. And then I had this like jolt of creativity and I literally like rolled out of bed and put this cardigan on, put a little makeup on because, you know, I don't want to be out here looking any kind of way on Beyonce's internet. And I was having a good hair day. So I figured, you know what, we're going to turn on the camera. We're going to talk all about knitting because I have thoughts, I have ideas. And yeah, so anyway, so Cote cardigan by Hiroko Payne. I highly recommend it. It is a great pattern. I don't know if it's a beginner friendly pattern. So there's a lot of choices that you have to make as you're working on it, and you have to be fairly comfortable knitting cables because you're knitting a lot of cables, and it's a significant amount of purling as well because it's a cardigan knit flat. So that's just something to keep in mind. That being said, still 10 out of 10, 5 stars, highly recommend. Buy the pattern, save it, and when you feel like you're ready for it, then I recommend that you knit it. I also highly, highly recommend the Labi Anime Cori worsted. It is an investment. This is a masterpiece to me. I used almost 800 grams of yarn, or maybe 900. I used a lot of yarn. So yeah, I bought my yarn from my local yarn shop, Looped Yarnworks. I don't know why words are escaping me today, here in Washington, D.C. And yeah, so anyway, that's that. So I guess we'll go in like the normal order of podcasting things, and I will talk about my finished objects. I have 2 finished objects, 2 whips, or do I have 3 whips? 2 whips, and some feature cast-ons that I want to talk about, which will also involve some new yarn that I purchased. So here we go. Okay, so going in order. No, I don't want to do it that order. What do I want to do? Okay. There's yarn falling everywhere. It's literally like chaos at my feet. Okay, my first finished object of this year, and the first one I'm going to show you is the Camisole number 5 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. You can still see a string hanging out that I need to trim because this is fresh off of the blocking mat. Okay, so I have thoughts about both this pattern and my particular project. So the yarn that I used is Pearl Soho line weight in the color Pine Red. It was in their Heathers line. I bought it on sale a couple of years ago and finally pulled it out of stash to use it for this project. So a lot of people have thoughts about this project, and I think my thoughts are going to be a little bit different than theirs. So one, I do like the way the pattern is written, and I actually enjoy the finished object, and I think it's because I was able to, I don't know exactly how, but I was able to kind of shorten this armhole. So mine comes up fairly high, and because of that, I am able to wear a regular bra under this top. Now, not every single one of my bras will work with this top, but I can wear a bra under it. So that's good. I knit this in a single ply yarn, which was a choice that I should not have made. So I really wanted to cast this project on. It was like a spur of the moment. I'm feeling inspired. Everybody was knitting them, and I wanted one, but I wanted one that was more fall winter. I wanted something that I could wear to work under a blazer, and I wanted it to be like wool. And I had this yarn in my stash. I loved the color of it, so I cast it on. I did do a gauge swatch. I cast it on. And if you know anything about the properties of single ply yarn, you know that it doesn't have any twist. It's literally just a single ply of yarn, and it tends to be better for like shawls, or pretty much shawls, or to pair with like a mohair, or like run with another strand of something, because it gets fuzzy. It gets a halo. It can start to look not the best. So this project has been fuzzy its whole life. Like it looks worn, and it literally has never been worn before. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but anyway, it's super duper fuzzy. So yeah, I don't know if that was the best choice. I love the color. I love the fit. I think that I will probably knit another one of these. I would love to find like a cotton wool blend, because I think it's important to make this with wool, because it's ribbing and you want it to stretch, but you want it to have memory and elasticity to bounce back. So I don't want to knit it in like pure silk or, you know, cotton or anything like that, because I need it to have that, like that give. But yeah, so I think I'll knit this again, not anytime soon. 2x2 rib on, I think I knit this on the needle size called for in the pattern, which was a 3. Let me see if I have some notes. I didn't take notes before this episode either, so everything is really just off the top of my head, which y'all should not trust, because lately, whew, let's see what my notes said. I have no idea. So I'm gonna venture a guess that I used the called for needle size, which is very small. So it got a little tedious, and it took me like 3 weeks, maybe a little bit less, to knit like 90% of this. And then I just got stuck on the last like 2.5 inches of ribbing. I think on the last episode I recorded, I needed to knit 2.5 inches of ribbing, and I literally just pulled this off the blocking mat. So it took me a long time. Granted, I got distracted by other projects and frankly just like lost interest, which is something I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to also talk about like my 2020, what year is it? 2023 goals. I don't have it. Spoiler alert, I don't have any goals, but I'm going to talk about some reflections that I have from my 2022 year of knitting that I'm taking into my 2023 knitting practice. But anyway, the long and short of it is, I lost steam on this project. It took me forever to finish. I will probably knit one of these again, because once you get it joined in the round and finish off the finishing part, it's just smooth sailing, like 2x2 knitting, but it is tedious. I did a new bind off on the hem. I'm gonna link a video to it, but because I'm about to give a very, very poor explanation of this particular bind off technique. So I'm forewarning you that this explanation will be bad, and that I am going to link to a video, but I'm going to explain it anyway, despite the fact that I just said I'm not going to do a good job. This is where we are. So you it's like a regular bind, like a regular in pattern bind off. You knit the knits, you purl the purls. But before the stitch that you're going to either knit or purl, you twist your needle either clockwise or counterclockwise to, I guess, add a little bit of like yarn or twist to the bind off, and it makes it very stretchy. So because for me, and I've talked about this before, maybe I haven't. Well, if I have, I'm going to talk about it again. My bust circumference is all in the front. I'm not a particularly wide person, but I have depth. You know, I have a lot of volume, if that makes sense, in the front of my body. And so it is not sufficient for the bust of a sweater or a top or a garment to fit over my chest. The bottom has to also get over that same circumference. I think that's the proper geometry term. And so if something goes awry in the bind off, it's not just like, oh, it's tight. It's like we're stuck. Like we've come to a complete stop and I can't get it on. So I'm always looking for like stretchy bind offs or things that are going to make it easier to get a top on and off, because I did recently have to cut myself out of a hand knit sweater. And now I'm going to have to reknit the bind off. So, which I think was technically the cast on because it was knit bottom up. Anyway, I'm going to have to redo it because I have to cut myself out because I literally just could not get it back over. So anyway, I did that bind off. I enjoyed it. I will be using it again. So yeah. This is this pattern. I talked before that it is not a size inclusive pattern. I do think it is an adaptable pattern. I don't think that people should have to put that much work into it because of the size range. And yeah, so do with that what you want. I have already purchased the pattern. I will probably knit another one, but I think that there are other patterns that can get you the same or similar look without having to purchase this particular pattern if this is a top or a style that you're interested in. So that is my most recent finished object / my first finished object of the year. My last finished object of 2022, yes, it would have made sense to go in chronological order. I didn't do that. Choices were made. Anyway, my last finished object of 2022 was the Daily Pullover by Paula Pereira for Purl Soho. And this is knit in linen quill in the color green golden or golden green. I have it linked below. I purchased it when it was on sale. That is really honestly the only time I buy from Purl Soho. I love their linen quill yarn. It is a yarn that I'm like constantly purchasing, but I only buy it on sale because one, the prices have gone up. They think we don't notice. I've noticed, but also like, why buy it full price when you can get it on sale? You know, we can be frugal. So anyway, this is knit, I already said, it's by Paula Pereira. It's the Daily Pullover. I knit the size large. Again, this is where having like notes and information would be handy, but I don't have that. We're going to talk about my plan for that. I do have a plan for that. I do have a goal / plan for that. Not for my knitting, no, but for record keeping. But anyway, I believe I knit the large. It used up a little. The setup is also precarious. Work with me, y'all. Okay. Like I said, I knit a large. The yarn color is green golden. It's divine. This is my first time knitting anything other than a half and half triangles wrap with the linen quill, and I love it. Y'all loved this color too. It looks really good on me, and I think this is going to be a really fun like transitional piece, a really fun like spring pullover. You could probably knit this in any fingering weight, but I will say that the linen quill is a little bit thinner than most fingering weights, so you get like 450 yards per 100 grams. Okay, look, I have a snake right here. Yeah, you get 440 grams. Nope. 440 yards per 100 grams. So it's a little bit thinner, but you can, I'm sure you can like fudge it if you do a gauge swatch. I knit this on the, I'm pretty sure I knit this on the recommended needle size. I got caught up on the sleeves. It had been a while since I had done a fingering weight sweater. I think the last fingering weight sweater I did was my Fox Thoughts sweater at the beginning of last year. And so it was just a slog to get through the sleeves. And I was working on this and this at the same time. Very, you know, winter holidays, it's giving Grinch. But so I was working on 2 thin fingering weight projects at the same time. I was tired. But nonetheless, this only took me a couple of weeks to complete, and I will definitely be making more of these. I think this is a really good project. If you have gotten on the half and half triangles wrap craze, and maybe you've purchased some colors that didn't pair the way you thought they were, this is a really good way to use up that yarn, because you're going to use roughly the same amount of yarn in this as you would use for a half of the half and half triangles wrap. And like I said, I think I knit the large and I only used 2.5 skeins. So yeah, I love this. I can't wait to pull this out in spring, and I can't wait to make another one of these, because honestly, it's really pretty. I love the neckline, this V-neck neckline, and it's very flattering on me. So yeah, I love that. So those are my 2 finished objects. I'm gonna now talk about my whips. I have 2 whips. The first one is living in my Plystra project pouch. I think the bag is like the bag. I don't know. This one that I bought for my birthday a couple years ago. I actually want to get another Plystra pouch. I love them. But living inside of it is a project that is being seen for the first time here on the podcast. This is a sneaky peeky of the color. And I have feelings. I have thoughts. I have feelings. So I'm going to process them on camera with y'all, as I tend to do. And then y'all are going to leave me comments, as y'all tend to do. And I'm going to feel better about it, because it is gorgeous, but I still have feelings. Anyway, I'm going to give a little story time before I share it to heighten the suspense. So I had jury duty for 5 weeks, all day, Monday through Friday for 5 weeks. And I was like, what am I going to do all day? So like a good knitter, I went on the website to see what I could and could not bring to jury duty. And it said no metal craft needles, but it didn't say anything about wood. So I brought knitting. I cast on a project specifically for jury duty. And the month of December was like, it was like a whole thing. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to do that much unpacking on Blue Ivy Carter's internet, but there was a lot going on. If you know, you know, there's just a lot going on. So I would have finished this project in the time allotted had other things not happened, but they did, and I didn't. So it's still a whip, but it's a mostly finished whip. Nevertheless, I cast on a new half and half triangles wrap, because I wanted something that was going to be mindless, something that would be easy to pick up and put down. So as we were hearing cases and hearing information, I could pick it up and put it down, pick it up and put it down, and not be like keeping track of a pattern. And I wanted something that I could knit on wooden needles and not really care about the experience of it, because I'm going to share my thoughts on the needles in a minute. But anyway, so I knit another half and half triangles wrap. And the colors that I used are Lavender Opal, which reads gray to a lot of people, but to me it reads lavender. I don't know, maybe my color perception is really high, but anyway, this is Lavender Opal. I still have ends to weave in, and I paired it with, let me make sure my needles don't fall out, Lemon Lime. And so this is the combination. I love it and I don't. So I posted about this a little bit on my Instagram stories, and everybody was like, I had only just like joined the yarn, and everybody was like, yep, go for it, girl, go for it. And so I hated it for a while, for a very long while. I even ordered more yarn while it was on sale to do a different color. I've seen other combinations with this lavender opal, but then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna just go for it. I'm here. If I don't love it, I can gift it to somebody, or, you know, it can just, it's not that deep, you know? So I went for it, and now I still don't know. I think it's really pretty, but I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, people love it. It is growing on me. I'm obsessed with this color though. This is Lemon Lime. I have one more skein left. Lemon Lime from Pro Soho. They had discontinued it and then they brought it back. I plan on buying many, many more skeins of this yarn because I want to use it for one, other half and half triangles wraps. Two, I want to make a daily pullover with it. Three, I need a bonus skein for just because I'm obsessed with this color. This is my kind of neon. This is like my kind of carrying on for a neon. So I'm gonna buy more. Y'all, please don't buy it up before I get a chance to buy it. But this is the color. And yeah, so I have about, there's a lot going on here, y'all. Okay. I have this much left to go. That's it. And I do have another, I have to go back for jury duty. I'm back at work for a little bit, but then I have to go back to jury duty. So I'm going to try to see how far I can get. I've only knit on this while I'm in jury duty. So all of this was knit in jury duty. All of it. I cast on and I knit the first, with the pattern, you like knit a row. I think you knit a row and knit back or something. Anyway, I cast on and then I kind of did that setup row, and then everything else has been knit in jury duty. So yeah. And so there was a lot of knitting time, which thank goodness. And thankfully I can also knit and read. So I was also able to, when we had like downtime, I was able to also read. Okay, I was also able to read books. So that was nice. So couple of things. I did a, what is it called when you cast on to a spare needle? All of y'all are yelling out what it is, but I did that. I cast it onto a spare needle, or you can use thread or whatever, yarn, other yarn. But I prefer the method where you cast onto a spare needle. It's just easier. A spare cord. It's just easier. So I cast onto a spare cord. I knit all of the lavender opal. Then I came back and I did an I-cord bind off. I'm slipping the last 3 stitches with the yarn and back to do that like binding, whatever. I figured with these like bright fun colors, I wanted the juxtaposition of like the colors and the structure. So I don't normally do this on my other, I've done it on one other one. I did it on the half and half wrap that I did for my mom, but I typically just don't care that much. And I will also do an I-cord bind off for the bind off, and then it'll be done. So I anticipate that this will be done by February. If not, it will probably be, you know, it'll get done. And then I'm going to cast on another half and half triangles wrap, because one of the reflections that I had over my knitting from last year is that I enjoy having both process and product knits. This is a process knit for me. I don't really care about having the half and half triangles wrap at the end of this knitting experience, but there are just times when I need to knit. And if I'm going to just be knitting, then I ultimately want to get something out of it. But I don't always want to be reading a pattern or counting or thinking about what I'm doing. Sometimes I just want to knit. And so the half and half triangles wraps, for all of the people who love them, hate them, feel indifferent, like I've said before, I don't think it's a life-changing pattern. For me, it is an opportunity to just be knitting without worrying about the fit or the perfect placement, or should I you know, am I getting gauge? What do I need to do? What bind off do I need to do? Like, you know, having to make a ton of decisions. I don't have to do that when I'm working on a half and half triangles wrap. So when I am done with this one, I will be casting on another one. I think yeah. I don't know both of the colors yet, but the color that I'm going to cast on is Pale Mushroom. I bought this in 2019. Nope, 2020. Bought this in 2020 or maybe 2021, but I've had it in stash, so I'm going to use it up and I'll figure out the other color. I have tons of colors of linen quill. Whenever it goes on sale, I usually buy like anywhere between 3 and 6 skeins, just to have as like a color palette, because I really do like the linen quill yarn. I know people, again, have feelings about it. I don't have those feelings. I like the yarn, so I keep buying it because I like it. So that's that. Oh, the needles. Okay, so the needles that I used were the Licca needles, the indigo set. I feel like I've talked about these before, but I bought these on accident. I thought I was getting the driftwood, but I wasn't. But I got these, and I tried them out like one time. I didn't like the cord. I didn't really like the needle because I usually use the Chiaogu red lace, and I didn't love it, but I had them. So, and I didn't want to send them back. I didn't want to do anything with them. So I kept them, and they came in handy for this. And I will say they have grown on me. I still don't love the cord. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's different than the red lace cord. And I think the cord is the part that I dislike the most. It feels flimsy in a way that the Chiaogu cords don't. And if you knit with Chiaogu cords, then you know what I'm talking about. But it feels flimsy in a way that those cords do not. And I don't know, maybe I would prefer a swivel cord better. I don't know, but I got used to it over time. And for this project in particular, with this yarn, I think it worked well. I guess I could knit a whole garment with them because I've knit, you know, 2 garments worth of yarn, but I don't know. The jury is still out. No pun intended. The jury is still out on this. So yeah, but that's what I used, and I didn't have any problems with getting them in and out of jury duty, because again, they're not metal. And the marshals were even like, oh my gosh, like, what are you working on, blah blah blah. And they didn't ask me to like pull out my knitting for safety reasons. They were just like, one of the marshals was just curious. So like I said, this should be done sooner rather than later because I'm almost done with jury duty. And so when I'm done with jury duty, this hopefully will also be done. Okay. Those are out of the way. Okay, my next whip is something that I previewed maybe the last episode. I don't know. I haven't rewatched my past episodes, so I honestly don't know what I've said and haven't said. I'm just guessing. It's all just a guess, y'all. But I know for certain that I talked about this project, and I cast it on, and it's divine. Okay, so the project, hold on. Things are happening. Okay, the project is this. It is the Akimi sweater from the fall 2020 issue of Amarisu. And the designer, I think, is Kyoko Kikuno. And yeah, so I purchased the yarn, recommended in the pattern, in the color from the pattern. But y'all know me, I did some modifications. So here it is. And it's showing up a little bit more red on camera. The color name is Carrot, and it is not a primary orange, but it is a little bit more vibrant than it's showing up on camera. So I have finished and cast off the body, and I am working on the first sleeve. And I'm gonna talk about the modifications that I made. There weren't a whole lot, but I made a couple. So I did thought I was gonna show you, don't have it. I did the right thing and I knit a gauge swatch. And I knit it on the recommended needle, and I was getting too few stitches per inch. So it was going to be much bigger than called for in the pattern. Not much bigger, but bigger than what was called for in the pattern. And I already knew that I did not want a lot of positive ease. So if you see the way it fits on the model, it fits with, you can see it a little bit better here. It fits with a lot of, not a lot, but it fits with positive ease. She's wearing it sort of slouchy, and I'd seen other people's project pages on Ravelry, and they were wearing it kind of slouchy, and I didn't want that, because one of the things that you have to think about, again, when you have volume at the bust, is that is positive ease going to be flattering, and is the amount of positive ease in the pattern going to be flattering? 9 times out of 10 for me, the answer is no. And so I usually try to knit things with not negative ease. I don't always love negative ease either, but with a little bit less ease than what's called for in the pattern. Anyway, so I like the fabric, but I wanted to go down sizes in the pattern. But then I made a choice. That might be the title of this episode. Choices were made. I made a choice, and I don't remember why. And again, this is going to get into one of my goals for 2023. Well, my only goal for 2023, but knitting goal for 2023. I made a choice, and that choice was to go down 2 needle sizes. I don't remember what my reasoning was at the time, but I did it. Anyway, went down 2 sizes, and then I knit Darcy always talks about my patterns. Y'all, shout out to the people whose patterns really go through it, because I use paper patterns, and I put them through their paces. Anyway, the pattern calls for a 4.5. I am using y'all are seeing me have a real life, like, on camera moment. About my sleeve. But we're here and we're gonna go with it. Anyway, I used a 4mm. I either used a 4mm or a 3.5mm. I have a 3.5mm in my sleeve. But for some reason, I feel like I knit the body on a 4. Which will explain one of the issues that I was having with my sleeve in a moment. Anyway, let me stay focused. Okay. And and then I knit basically a mix between a small and a medium. And I ended up with right about 40 inches for the finished chest measurement. And so I'm like sitting right at 0, a little bit more, like maybe an inch of positive ease. And it looks stunning. First of all, this color on me. Get into it, right? Okay, it's super cute. I'm gonna come back to the sleeve because I'm freaking out inside. If I have to rip back the sleeve, I have to rip back the sleeve. But maybe I don't. We're gonna talk through it. Like I said, we're gonna process this. Everything we're processing live. here we go. Modifications. So I added pattern repeats. I don't remember exactly how many are called for in the pattern, but I added because when I ended the pattern repeat, you add this like pearl ridge in between each of the sort of sections of the pattern. It was gonna fall right here. And I didn't want that. I did not want like a garter ridge right across the middle of my bust. I don't have a problem with the size of my bust, but not everything is cute, right? Like not everything is a look or a vibe. So I added sections, this section of panels, and that section of pattern, I added until it came over the bust, and then I went ahead with that. So I kept track of that number of repeats, and then made sure to do that again on the sleeve. Okay, so what else did I do? That was really it. That's really kind of the only modification that I did. For a while, I had also added some repeats of this, I think they call it the Tiny Bubbles section. That's really fun. I added some repeats of that too. So what I did, I didn't like, it was gonna be too long. I didn't like it, so I ripped it back, and then I like re-knit this bottom section in the ribbing. And so it is a little cropped, but not super cropped. It comes like right below my belly button. It looks gorgeous. Now what I wanted is I did want a fuller sleeve. I thought I was knitting this on the right size needle. It's possible that I did not. I am gonna check some things. I think the sleeve looks great. It fits great. It's a little bit of a more form-fitting sleeve. It fits a little bit closer to how this sleeve fits, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but I wanted a little bit more of like a bubble sleeve effect. So what I may do, I may block it and see what happens, or I might just keep the party going and just go with it. TBD. Well, you'll find out when I find out, pretty much. Follow me on Instagram for live updates, because that's probably where I will update on all of that. Last thing is that this loop section, I am going to trim this and kind of cut it back and make it a little bit more of a fringe. Okay, so that's that. That is my Akimi. I am excited to have that finished sooner rather than later. My goal was to finish it by the end of the month. I think the end of the month is next week. It could be this week by the time y'all are seeing this. Who knows? So TBD on whether or not that is also going to be done by the end of the month. But it will be done sooner rather than later. So that brings me to feature cast-ons. So one of the reflections that I had coming into this year was my attention span for projects is short. So, and maybe this is true for everyone, but I have about a 3-week window on any given project. And when I first started knitting, that was fine because I was making smaller projects. Now that I've become much more of a garment knitter, a shawl knitter, things that and I prefer fingering weight and sport weight yarns, things just take longer. And that is okay. And so instead of changing my mindset around patterns and projects and things like that, I want to change my habit. And, or not my habit. Okay. Instead of changing my mindset or my habit, I want to change my system. And I think Natalie of the Nitty Natty podcast was talking about this, and it really resonated with me. So I want to change my system of how I knit things and not necessarily my feelings around the things that I knit. And that is because I spend a lot of time researching projects, researching yarn. I really fall in love with the pattern before I decide to knit it. I am like, I don't generally just cast things on a whim. Usually I have been thinking about a pattern for a long time. Even if at the moment that I cast it on, it's on a whim, it's very rare that I purchase a pattern and then like cast it on within a week. Usually it is a months long, even a year long process in the case of the pattern the project I'm about to show you before I cast on. And so there's that. I enjoy that build up and that excitement and that all of that. But at the same time, it means that I often will sort of lose steam at about the 3-week mark. And so I am going to try something different this year. I'm going to try casting on 2 projects at a time. Go with me here. So we had a little tech issue, so I don't remember where I was or what I was talking about. But hopefully it'll come back to me as I just start rambling. Anyway, so I vaguely remember that I was talking about taking a lot of time to like think about projects and wanting to have more than one project going at a time. So I'm going to give it a little go with this next set of feature cast-ons that I'm going to show you. One of which I've kind of previewed on my Instagram. The first of which is going to be a podcast exclusive. So y'all are going to be the first people to hear about this. I'm very excited about it. And then I'm going to talk to you about my actual plan, which is like my actual goal, related to how I'm going to keep track of my projects and notes and things like that. It probably won't be that hard to figure out. So I'm going to start with I think the less exciting of the 2 projects. But y'all can let me know your thoughts. Okay, so last year I had a goal of knitting more from stash. Didn't really do it. Every project that I knit was new yarn, I think. Pretty much. So this year I'm going to try to do that again. And again, it's just like a try thing. What I've realized is that the yarn that I like buying and the yarn that I enjoy making projects with are 2 different types of yarn. And so I need to do some reconciliation with the yarns that I've purchased and the types of patterns that I want to knit and figure it out. I'm not going on like a no buy or anything like that. I think that's great for the people that it works for. But for me, I realized that I don't really buy yarn that often. And so I don't really feel like I need to do a no buy. Also, I don't want to completely knit up all of the yarn that I have because some of it is special and I probably will never knit with it. And other of it, I just don't feel inspired by it yet. And so this project is an example of what happens when you just kind of let yarn sit for a while and then you see a pattern and it all works out. So I'm going to talk about the yarn first. So this yarn is from Neighborhood Fiber Company. It is what they call a block party, which I think are their like one-of-a-kind accidental skeins. And this is in the color peach, or it was described as peach. I don't think they give them like color names, but it was described as peach. It is on their rustic fingering base, which is 475 yards per 100 grams. It is a single ply. So we'll show you that. And I bought this yarn 2 years ago. I picked up 3 skeins of it. 3 skeins. So essentially a sweater's quantity. And when I purchased that yarn, I also purchased this block party yarn, which is their loft, which is 60/40 silk mohair. Okay, once again, tech issues abound, but hopefully I fixed it. Anyway, don't remember what I was talking about. Again, I think I was showing off this block party color. It's called Peach Cranberry, or at least that's how it was described online. When I purchased the yarns, I purchased them to pair together. And I originally purchased them for a cozy classic raglan by Jessie Maid. I didn't cast it on. No real particular reason, just didn't cast it on. And I was watching everyone do their adorable, that's kind of condescending. I was watching everybody doing their end of year, what I knit in 2022 wrap-ups, whatever. I always get inspiration from them. I don't know if I'm ever going to do one of those like wrap-up videos because I do these podcasts and I don't know, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, somebody talked about the Petit knit Eros sweater. And I'm sure you've seen this. This is obviously black and white, but all over Instagram, but it's like a striped sweater. And I had saved it on my Instagram a while ago for the color. And I thought, oh, it's just like a regular raglan, whatever, blah, blah, blah sweater. But it's actually, I'm going to show you this last page of the pattern. Hopefully you can see. It's a saddle shoulder. It is a saddle shoulder construction. And in the pattern, you get instructions for doing it as both a sweater and a sweater dress. I'm going to just be knitting it, obviously plain, in this yarn with this construction, because I've never done a saddle shoulder. I've done round yoke and raglan. That's pretty much it. So I wanted to cast it on, and I think that's going to be, once it's joined in the round, it's going to be a breeze. So I wanted a pattern kind of like that I could work on while I'm watching movies or doing other stuff, kind of, you know, pretty easy knitting. But the pattern I'm very excited about, like super duper excited about. I actually got inspiration for this to cast this on a year ago from Amy Palco of the Meaningful Stitch podcast. She knit, and this is a terrible picture because again it's in black and white so you can't really see. It's called the Astrid by Junko Okamoto. I love Junko Okamoto designs. A lot of them are saved in my favorites on Ravelry. I have knit one of her designs already. So Amy did her own color palette and it was beautiful, but I really liked the color palette of the original pattern. And so I waffled and I went back and forth, and after I finished my Thoughts last year, I was kind of itching to do more color work, but I didn't cast on anything else that was color work. And I had been looking at some patterns and couldn't really decide. And on YouTube, you know how to like recommend episodes for you to watch, and it recommended the episode of Amy's podcast where she was talking about this pattern, and I was like, that's the one. So I purchased the pattern and it sat in my queue for it just sat there forever. And so I decided that I'm going to cast it on, and so I purchased the yarn, and here it is. And I'm going to go through it because it's gorgeous. So I purchased the yarn recommended in the pattern because I've never worked with this yarn before. And I think I've talked about this before, but usually I will work with the yarn in a pattern unless the yarn called for is pretty generic. So if it's like a superwash, you know, whatever yarn, or mohair, whatever, I'll kind of pull from things that I have. But I've never worked with this particular yarn before, and I was actually very excited for it. So the yarn that it calls for in the pattern is the Biches Le Petit Lambswool. Now, I'm from Alabama. I don't speak French. Want to, so grace. Okay. And I purchased the colors that she used. I'm going to link to the pattern and the yarn where I found it. I found a really good deal on it online. But it's a very low contrast top with the color work. So I'm going to show you the colors that are recommended in the pattern. So for the main color of the sweater, this is called gray brown. And it's really pretty. And all of these colors are kind of heathered. They kind of remind me of like the Jameson and Smith and Jameson of Shetland and that kind of wool. So it's kind of a heathered yarn. This is the main color. And then it calls for 4 contrast colors. That's a lie. It calls for 5 contrast colors. So the contrast colors it calls for are yellow mustard, red brown, turquoise, blue gray, and light pink. But when I was on the website, I decided to pick up 2 more colors to potentially substitute for the light pink. So I picked up the light pink violet and the light peach. So you can kind of see one is a little darker, one is a little peacher. And I'm going to swatch to see how I like each of these colors. Okay, so if the video looks different, it's because I just spent an exorbitant amount of time trying to fix my tech issues, but I think it's resolved and I can finish sharing. I have no idea where I was. I think I was talking about the Biches and the palette for it. I really like the palette that the pattern calls for, but like I said, I'm going to swatch less for the fit because the garment itself has a ton of positive ease. It's a one size only pattern, which is a choice, but because of the things that you can do with yarn and gauge and all of that, I think it could be, you know, a garment that could fit a lot of bodies. But I'm gonna swatch for this pretty soon. I'm probably gonna get this yarn wound up today and start just playing around with the swatching, mainly for this color. I think the other one rolled off, but it's gonna be between this one, this light peach, this light pink, or the pink violet, or whatever it's called. So that's all of that. And then something else that I've been trying to do a little bit more of recently, just thinking about the yarns that I have and yarns that I've had in my possession for a while that I've been kind of stumped about what to do, is I've just been swatching, honestly. I kind of got this idea from Tracy of the Grocery Girls, and she was talking about, this was a while ago, about how she just swatches things and kind of sees how the yarns play together and the colors and uses that to kind of garner inspiration. And so I have been doing a little bit of swatching, and so I'm going to share my swatch with you and kind of talk about an idea that I have for this particular yarn. But I purchased, let me see if this is the one that's attached to my swatch. It is. Okay. So I purchased this yarn on a work trip in California several years ago, and I bought it, I think I was like just starting to get into going to local yarn shops and yarns like that, but it's from this brand called Imperial Yarn. It's a sport weight yarn, and I think I got it for like $10 a skein. They had 3 skeins, so I picked up 3 skeins, and I got home and I realized that I don't like this shade of brown. It looks much better on camera than it does in person. In person, it's very, very flat, and it's called chocolate, and it's definitely a chocolate brown, but it's very one note in the color, and I prefer my tonals to have a little bit more dimension to them. And then I only had 3 skeins, which is not enough for a sweater either. And even if it was, I don't like the color. So it has just been like living with my other yarns for a while now, and I didn't really know what to do with it because, like I said, I didn't love the color and whatever. And then I purchased this yarn from Treehouse Knits in the colorway Dante, and this is from the Cocoa collection, and I love this yarn, but I felt like this was going to be a difficult mohair to pair with other yarns, largely because if I paired it with like a caramelly brown, I worried that it was going to look too marled. If I paired it with like a black, then I was worried that the colors weren't going to really shine through. And one day I got the brilliant idea to swatch the 2 of them together. No, I don't have a lot going on in this bag. Okay, so here is my swatch. Now this I like a lot more. So what I think the Dante did, there we go, is it gave that brown some dimension. And I think what the brown does is it lets sort of the variegation in the Dante, in the mohair, really kind of stick out without it looking too marled. It just looks like this is the yarn. There we go. It just looks like this is the yarn. Like this is just how, and this has been washed and blocked. And so it has really good drape. I could even go a little denser on the fabric. And so I think what I'm gonna do, I have 3 skeins of the Dante, 2 of them are wound up, and I have 3 skeins of this sport weight. And I think I'm gonna make a winter accessories set. So the thing about winter in DC is that it's interesting, and I have unique physical like constraints about cold weather, and physical, like internally physical and externally physical. So I know the balaclava trend is over, maybe, for people. I don't know. I wasn't really into it last year, but now I want one. So I think I'm gonna make a balaclava because if you've noticed, you've never seen me knit a hat. I don't wear hats because I have a lot of hair and it's curly. And if I put it in a hat, then things happen. And so I think a balaclava is gonna be a good fit for me because it's not really compressing my hair, but I can cover my ears. And then I also wanna make one of those, like, I think they call them like a collar that I can fit like under my coat because I'm not really a scarf kind of girl. They're just kind of finicky, and even though I love shawls and I usually have them at work, scarves are different. They're just, it's hard to wear if you're having, like, it's hard to wear and do the train. If you know, you know. And then I think I'm gonna do some fingerless mitts. I have a camel colored coat, say that 3 times fast, that I wear to work, and I think this is gonna look really pretty just under that. I have a few ideas, a few pattern ideas for each of those things. And yeah, I'm excited to play with these and to cast these on. So I think this is going to be my 3rd cast on, even though I said I was only gonna do 2. I think I'm gonna have 3 going. And this fabric feels really, really nice. The yarn that I bought in California is 100%, why lie or guess when you can just read the information? It is yarn. It's 100% wool. Yeah, 100% wool. So it's not superwash or anything like that. And so I think the combination of the two, I may even go down a needle size, which would involve me knowing what size needle I knit. I knit with the recommended needle for this yarn. I think I'll go down a needle size. It's a little airy. You can't see me, but I can see you. Doesn't matter. It's a little airy. So I think I'm going to go down a needle size when I knit those items. But I think this is going to be a really nice thing to have. And for the last few winters, I'm always like, why don't I knit myself some fingerless gloves? And then I don't. So I think this set is going to be really good. And it's going to be a good way to put these particular yarns to use. And I think I will have some of this Dante color left over. Although I do think this would have made a really pretty garment. I don't know. It just feels like the right thing to do. We'll see if that's what actually happens because I'm gonna cast on the other projects first. So it may turn into something else. We don't know. We'll see. But I've been swatching, and playing with swatches has been a really fun, like, creative exercise. Not just in terms of thinking about, is my garment gonna fit, but also, do I like the yarn? Do I like the yarn and needle combo? Do the colors work together? Things like that. And I've just been getting a little bit more into swatching. I know, you know, it's a word that people don't like, but I personally like swatching, and I've been enjoying that process. So I'm gonna keep doing more of that. Last, but maybe not least, well, I don't know if this is the last thing. We're gonna see what happens, but I have decided to start keeping a knitting journal. So I am terrible with Ravelry. I'm terrible with Instagram. I'm terrible with YouTube. I'm terrible with all of these tech things. I am an analog girl. I'm not digital. I'm very analog. So I've decided that I want to keep a knitting journal. And I picked up this Leuchtturm Dot Grid A5 journal. Let's see, it's just dot. There we go. It's just a dot grid journal. And I was going back and forth between getting this and the one from Lina. I decided to get this one because the one from Lina has like pre-prescribed pages and a page setup, and I want the flexibility of being able to have 1 page for a project or 5 pages for a project if that's what I need, and the Lina one doesn't really give you that flexibility. And I went with the Leuchtturm because this is an A5 size, and even though I love moleskin notebooks, the other one isn't as big, so you get just a little bit more. I'm trying to see, surprisingly I don't have a moleskin to show you, but you get about a ½ inch more page space from this compared to the comparable moleskin, and I didn't want the extra large size because you don't get as many pages in those. So this has 250 pages. I'm excited to get it set up. Right now I just have one page that I think will probably say like this, just right at the front. That's just some sticky notes where I have written down the projects that I want to cast on for each quarter of the year. These are plans right now. It's not set in stone except for the ones for quarter one of the year. And that is just to help me I get a lot of creative ideas and a lot of inspiration, and I want to knit this pattern and I want to knit that pattern. And so this gives me a place to kind of brain dump when I would see myself sort of knitting that pattern, and then I can start to think about it. So I've already started thinking about the projects that I want to cast on for the second quarter of the year and what yarn I might have that works for that, if I want to order the yarn for that, those sorts of things. So that's sort of where that stands, but I'm excited to get this all set up. I will probably share more about this, setting this up and getting this put together over on Instagram. So follow me over there if you want more details, information, you know the things. So yeah, I'm excited to get my knitting journal set up. I've noticed that a lot of people, mainly podcasters, because those are the people who are talking about these things, but they are doing knitting journals and kind of getting away from Ravelry. And I don't know, I don't have any like analysis on that, but I find it interesting. And I think there's something to be said about taking the time to actually write things down. Now, that being said, I do want to get better with having Ravelry project pages, not for archiving my knits and what I'm working on and sharing my thoughts, but more so for like when I modify things or just do things different from the pattern. And that's because I find those pages really, really helpful. And I want to be able to like give that back. But I'm not thinking about my Ravelry page or my Ravelry project pages as the place where my project is sort of archived, if that makes sense. I don't know if that made any sense. But anyway, I'm going to be working on getting that set up. I want to put my old projects in there as well. So I need to actually go through my bin that has all of my hand knits in it and like assign pages for those. I don't know. I'm torn. I need to decide what I'm going to do. I kind of wanted to have all of my knitting projects in it, but I may just go back and get, I don't want to be wasteful though either. So I don't want to buy like another whole notebook for that because these notebooks aren't cheap. So I'll probably just reserve some pages for those and just do like brief notes as much as I can, because some of my projects before I started podcasting, I don't have as much information on. At least the ones since I've been podcasting, I can go back and review the footage and write down notes and thoughts and things like that. So I think that's everything that I had to share. I'm really excited for this year and for the ideas that I have and for being more, everybody's talking about being intentional, right? And I don't want to like throw that out there as like a buzzword or whatever, but I am looking forward to being more intentional about how I spend my knitting time. Less so about the projects that I'm making. I have some ideas for things that I want to make. Like I've wanted to make this asterisk sweater for a long time, but I also know that that's going to be on my needles for a while, which is why I want to throw in things like the other sweaters and things like that I can sort of use as a way to feel like I'm making progress towards other things or like finishing things without losing the joy of knitting and working on things that can kind of happen when you've been working on a project for a really, really long time and you're like in that slog of getting things done. So I'm really excited for the patterns that I have in mind, for some of the yarns that I've been sort of pulling out and playing with and touching again and like getting that inspiration. And yeah, I'm just excited. So I would love to hear what any of your goals or intentions are for the year. Like I said, I don't have any in terms of projects that I want to finish. I have ideas of things I want to work on, like I shared, but outside of the ones that I have yarn identified for, which are literally these two projects that I just showed you, I really don't have like a certain number of sweaters or knit through my stash or whatever. I just want to have a good time knitting, and I want to continue to evolve my practice so that I feel both productive in terms of making items, because I enjoy that feeling of starting something and finishing it, but also the feeling of just being able to sit down and enjoy my knitting and finding that balance between knitting for peace and being productive in my practice of knitting. So I'm excited for that. And I think I have figured out a way to maybe be a little bit more consistent in the way that I am uploading and sharing here on YouTube. Part of the issue is that I film these videos on my phone, and my phone has like no storage. And so every time I film a video, it's like a mad dash to clear off storage so that I can get the video edited and uploaded and all of those things. But I think I have something figured out. I'm gonna try it on this video. If it works, then my plan is to also start podcasting once a month, sort of in the style of Stacey Elstone from Stress Knits, which is kind of like, here's what I finished, here's what I'm working on, which is the vibe of my podcast anyway, but like being just a little bit more, here's that word again, intentional in how I share things, both here on YouTube and on Instagram. That being said, work this year is going to be crazy, and that's a nice way of putting it. And so I am being hopeful that I'll be able to upload more regularly, but I'm not holding myself to any sort of schedule or anything like that, because these videos are supposed to be fun and sharing is supposed to be fun. And I feel like as soon as I make promises to you or even to myself, it becomes something that is stressful. And excuse me, I already live a life of deadlines and timeliness, and yeah, like I don't need my knitting to be stressful either. Like nobody needs that. So that was a very long way of saying I hope to be on this platform a lot more. But if you want to see what I'm doing, you want to keep up with the things that I'm knitting, always follow me over on Instagram. I give more real-time updates over there. And it's also an easier place for me to catch up with people and chat. So people know that if you message me on Instagram, I'm a lot more likely to respond to that. YouTube, it's a little bit more arduous. And so I try to respond to all the comments on YouTube. I do respond to all the comments on YouTube, but it might take me a while to get to the comments versus on Instagram, I tend to be a little bit more real time, a little bit quicker, slightly. So anyway, like I was saying, I'd love to hear about whatever your knitting goals are, your knitting intentions for the year. Are you participating in like a stash down? Are you doing a no buy? Are you doing a low buy? I think I'm probably more in the camp of like a low buy, but I think that's where I've been for the last 2 years anyway. I haven't really purchased a lot of yarn just willy-nilly outside of Maryland Sheep and Wool, where I lost my mind. I've pretty much purchased yarn with patterns in mind and have pretty much knit those patterns with the yarn that I purchased, if that makes sense. So, and I'd also love to hear about any ideas that you have for projects that you want to work on. Like I said, I have a few ideas. I'll probably share them as I get closer to casting them on, kind of like I'm doing now, where I have a yarn identified and I'm like fairly certain that I'm going to cast that project on. Again, because I don't want to set myself up and have the stress of like telling people I was going to do something and then I don't do it and then it becomes a whole thing. Y'all know how these things go. So anyway, this has been fun. It's been a long episode. There's been a lot of things happening, but I think I have it all figured out. Hopefully you all will be seeing this episode sooner rather than later and it won't die on my phone. And until then, be safe, keep knitting, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.